Good afternoon, and I apologize. I actually filmed part 2 on Monday, gave it to the IT department, and they have not been able to put it up online yet, so I'm going to do it and post it myself. So today we're going to cover Unit 8-3 and 8-4, Markdowns, Perishables, as well as break-even and contribution margin. So first we're going to look at Markdowns and Perishables, and the Markdown percentage is the amount, the dollar amount, divided by the original selling price. And the best way to just go through these problems is actually just work some out. So we're going to look at the extra practice quiz on page 218. I'm going to do number 1, which is Sunshine Music. And so you can do it for a single, you can figure out the mark price, or there's a series of markdowns, and we'll do a problem that's going to focus on the series of markdowns. If you wanted just to figure out the markdown percentage amount, what you can do is say, okay, hey, we had as it said in the example, a unit for $18 at Target. They marked it down to $10.80. So the difference is going to be $7.20. Okay, well then we have to figure that amount. That's the amount that was marked down, the $7.20, divided by the original price of $18, gives you a percentage, and that would be 40%. So the markdown from $18 to $10.80 is a 40% markdown. So that's an individual. If we're actually going to look at a series of markdowns, let's look at again 218, number 1. Sunshine Music bought a stereo for $800 and marked it up 30% on selling price. Now it's really important to pay attention to the difference between selling price and on cost. So again, this will show up quite a few times on the exam this Sunday that's due. So it says they bought it for $800, and remember my formula. My selling price is equal to cost plus markup. So they bought it for $800, so my cost is going to be $800. Okay, and it was marked up on selling price by 30%. So I don't know my selling price yet, but I know it was marked up by 30% of my selling price. Okay. And then let's figure out the price before we go into all the different markdown and markups after that first week. So we get rid of our 30 selling. So we get rid of our 30 selling. So we have 0.7 selling equals 800. Divide that by 0.7. So selling equals 800 divided by 0.7. I'll put that into my calculator. And it turns out to be $1,142.86. So that's going to be our selling price. And then it says that it marked down the stereo 10% for the first week because business was slow. Then it marked down an additional 5%, and then it marked it up 2%. So what is the new selling price of the stereo to the nearest cent? So what we're going to do is we're going to take that amount and we're going to times it by how much we're actually going to pay. So it would be times by, they said 10%, so we're actually going to times it by 90. And then we'll times that number by 95, and then we'll times that number by 1.02 because it marked up 2%. So if I calculate that out, times 0.9 times 0.95 times 1.02 gets me $996. $996.69. Okay, so that was the selling price now, and it says what's the difference, or what is the markdown price percent based on the original? Well, we know our formula, so what we can do to get the percentage is what's the difference between these two from this number to this number. So subtract that from 1142.86 is $146. So the difference, 46.17, divide that by the original selling price of $1142.86. Gets you about 12.79%. So it's going to be 12.79 or 12.8% of a markdown is what that one is. So that's markdowns. Now let's look at the pricing perishable items. So number 2 says Alvin Rose owns his own vegetable and fruit stand. He knows that some of his produce will spoil, and so he ends up buying 500 pounds of tomatoes. So 500 pounds of tomatoes at 16 cents a pound. So he also says he expects 10% spoilage. And he says that he marks up the tomatoes 55% on cost. 55% on cost. Okay, so what would we do first? I'm going to put this down to make sure I know what we're going to do first. Well, I'd figure out how much he spent. Well, he spent $80 for those 500 pounds. So basically he did the quick math. Half of 16 is 8, and I get to move it 3 places, so it bumps up an extra 0. So you can use calculator or whatnot. He said 10% of 500 is going to spoil, so 50 pounds is going to spoil. Will spoil. So only 450 pounds will be remaining on what he's actually going to be able to use. So let's plug this into our formula. So selling price is equal to cost plus markup. So it cost us $80. The markup is 55% on cost. So it's 55% on cost, which is 80. We know that, so we know our selling price is going to be, calculator real quick, 80 times 0.55 equals 44, is $124. Now if we wanted to get it out a per pound price, would we then divide by 500? Well no, we then divide by 450, because that's what he's actually going to be able to sell after the spoilage. So 124 divided by 450 equals about 0.27556. So you could say 28 cents is what he's going to get per pound. So that's kind of how you do a perishable problem. Let's look quickly at contribution margin and your break-even analysis. Now, this is actually important if you're selling widgets or depending on what you sell, because you want to know how many units you have to produce before you actually start making a profit. And this is important because your contribution margin is your selling price minus your variable costs. So we know we had our fixed costs of rent or furniture, depending on what kind of widget you're trying to sell, or if it's a service, depending on that. Well, your variable cost will change on production amount. So if you require more energy or more material, the variable cost per unit will go up. And so that's what your contribution margin is, because you need to figure out, well, we have this every month cost and fixed cost. Do we have enough to pay that down and then break even, make profit after that? So let's look at some of the problems there on 8-4. So we're going to look at extra practice problem on page 220. It says Angel Company produces car radios. We need to figure out the contribution margin and the break even. So fixed costs fixed cost is equal to $96,000. And it said that the selling price is $240 and the variable cost. So the selling price is $240 and the variable cost is equal to $80. So to figure out the contribution margin, I just subtract this and I get my contribution margin of $160. Okay, and then to figure out the break even, I just do my fixed cost divided by my contribution margin, so my 96,000 divided by 160, so my 0 can cancel out. I know that that goes in 6 times, I do believe, and I have 2 zeros remaining, so my break even is going to be 600 radios, is what they need to sell before they actually start making a profit. So we could do a couple problems. If you want, we can turn to the DVD practice summary, and let's do number 1 to get you started. Sunset Company marks up merchandise 40% on cost. DVD player costs $90. What's the selling price? So again, we're going to draw this over. We're going to go DVD number 1. Or it's a DVD practice summary test. Practice test number 1. So selling price equals markup plus cost. So selling price is, what is it? Costs $90. So it's $90. The markup is 40%. So 40% times 90 gets our selling price. So we do quick math, 36 plus 90. So it should be, selling price should be about 126. Is that? And that's what it says. So if you have any questions, email me. I know we did the review already, but on the next video I can do some more practice if you want. Okay, thanks.